So good day everyone. So now we will continue to discuss another instructional strategy for early childhood science. But before we formally start the discussion, may I remind everyone to avoid speaking vernacular and speak in English only. Is that clear? Okay, so now I will pass the virtual floor to Mika Hillig for her topic.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? All right. So before anything else, we are the ninth presenter, and we're going to discuss the Unit 3 instructional strategies for teaching early childhood science, specifically the cooperative learning and the storytelling. But before we dig deeper to it, let's know first what is instructional strategies all about. So, can someone tell me or has an idea what is instructional strategies all about? Okay, can I have Miss Villasor?
Okay, good morning everyone again. So, when we say instructional strategies, these are the ways or tools and techniques that teachers uses to help the children learn inside the classroom. So it could be materials that they use, like um, for example, a chart or something, flashcards, or it could be hands-on activities, something like that.
All right, thank you, Miss Villasor. How about Miss Auman? All right, so I think Miss Auman has problem or his mic. All right, so when we say instructional strategies in early childhood, it refers to um, techniques and methods that educator or the teacher use to facilitate young children's learning and development. So these strategies are crucial because they help create a supportive and engaging environment that fosters their growth in various domains, including cognitive, social, emotional, and also their physical development. So, kindly next the slide, Miss Melfi. Excuse me, Jen Bea, kindly turn off your mic. So, we are your instructor for today's session. All right. Okay, so cooperative learning. Kindly next slide, please. All right, first we have objectives. So in this lesson, you will be able to discuss cooperative learning, identify the features of cooperative learning, name the benefits and challenges of using cooperative learning. Lastly, describe the approaches used in cooperative learning. All right, kindly next the slide, Miss Melfi. All right, thank you. So, cooperative learning is a strategy that teachers can use in helping children to become successful in acquiring many skills, such as dealing with and among other children in the classroom. So, when we say cooperative learning, it is a way of teaching where students work together in small groups to learn and accomplish a task. So, instead of working alone, they share ideas and help each other understand the subject. So this approach um, makes learning more engaging and encourages teamwork. So can someone read the definition? Can I have Miss Dorotayo?
Cooperative learning is defined as an instructional strategy that enables small groups of children to work together on a common assignment.
All right, thank you, Miss Dorotayo. So, according to them, to Luis and Vodopevic, according to them, in cooperative learning, young learners do not work individually. Instead, they are organized into groups and by their teachers to work together. And by that, they emphasize collaboration. So each member share their ideas and selects the best approaches that benefit everyone. And it promotes cooperation among all group members. All right. Kindly next the slide, Miss Melfi. Thank you. So can someone read the slide? All right, Miss Pagatpat.
Moreover, Hansen and Kaufman has, as stated in Vodopivic 2021, reiterated that cooperation enables young children to feel good and feel productive, develop strategies for coping with life's problems, develop happiness and belonging, acquire new skills, have fun, and develop a friendship with others.
All right, thank you so much. So, Hansen and Kaufman, as cited in Bodovivic 2011, emphasize that cooperation among young children has a several positive effects, so such as um, feel good and productive. So it means um, working together can boost children's self-esteem and a sense of accomplishment, and also coping strategies. So, in cooperative activities, it helps children learn how to handle challenges and solve problems collectively. And also, um, happiness and belonging. So when children engage with their peers, it fosters a sense of community and emotional well-being and skill acquisition. So collaboration allows children to learn new skills from each other and enhances their development. And also in fun, cooperative learning, as we all know, it is enjoyable, right? So it makes the educational experience more engaging. Excuse me. Lastly, it develops friendship. So friendship development. So working in groups helps children build relationships and friendships with their peers. All right. Kindly next the slide, Miss Melfi. All right. So, cooperation enriches children's social and emotional development while making learning a positive experience, and also the support of teachers for children in developing social competence is necessary. So, social competencies are the result of observing children while interacting with their peers and with adults. So, according to Vodopivic 2011, social competencies are the following. So, we have here first accepting social values. So, can someone has an idea about what it means? All right. Can I have Miss um, Ninya Unduna to share, or has an have do you have any idea of what is accepting social values in terms of social competence? Miss Unduna? Are you still there?
Yes, I think it's about um, accepting the values to
All right, thank you. So can I have Miss Noval?
Okay, so as what I have understood about accepting social values in incompetence, again,
What
um
is accepting social values in terms of social competence?
okay, in social competence. So it refers to the ability of interaction effectively with others and navigate personal and social conflicts. It also encompasses both social skills.
All right, thank you. So, accepting social values. So, this includes the teaching of social justice, honesty, responsibility, and a healthy way of life, and also sexual conduct as well as the ability to adopt. All right. So, for example, when a child spills their juice, then the teacher encourages another child to help by saying, let's help clean up so our friend feels better. So this helps children understand the importance of helping others and doing the right thing. So even when it's not easy. So when they help someone, um, they learn kindness, responsibility, and that is important to treat others fairly. All right. So it also shows them that it's okay to make mistakes, and helping each other makes everyone feels good. All right. So next we have here planning and decision making skills. So um, planning and decision making skills, this refers to making real and important decisions on where, what, and how, and with whom to work with. So, for example, when setting up a play area, the teacher asks, would you like to play with blocks or draw today? So, giving children choices, it teaches them to think about what they feel, what they like, and make decisions. So when they choose between different activities, they start to learn what they enjoy and how to make decisions that work best for them. So this also helps them feel more independent and confident because they can see the results of their own choices. Right. So did you get my point, everyone? Give me thumbs up if you understand. All right. So next we have positive self-image. So anyone, do you have any idea? All right, Miss Angela Inok.
so a positive self-image is the way you see and value yourself with confidence and acceptance. It means accepting your imperfections and feeling good about who you are as a person.
All right, thank you. All right, so when we say positive self-image, so this comprises the feeling of skills, personal power, and self-worth. So for example, a teacher notices a child finishing a drawing and says, you work hard on that picture. Look how colorful it is. So by praising the child for their effort rather than just the outcome or the result, it helps them believe in themselves, right? So it shows that it's not just about being perfect, but about trying your best and being proud of your work. So when children hear positive words like this, they feel more what confident, and which helps them to take new challenges with a positive attitude. All right. So next we have cultural competencies. So when we say cultural competencies, this covers the acquisitions of new skills, respect, and successful interpersonal cooperation with people from different ethnic and racial backgrounds. So, for example, the teacher shares a song from another country and invites the children to sing along and clap. So, exposing children to different cultures helps them appreciate how people can be different but still have similar feelings, the needs, and dreams. So, it teaches children to respect other traditions, languages, and a way of life. So, this is important because it helps build empathy, kindness toward others, especially as they meet new people from different backgrounds. All right. So next we have self-control. So can I have Melfi Disukatan to share, or you have any idea? All right. Can I have Josa, the Miss Josa? You have idea about?
Okay, it's self-control, right? Okay, so self-control is the ability of someone to hold back in doing unnecessary actions that would later on uh, do or have like a bad effect on yourself, to the people around you, or even in the society as a whole.
All right, thank you for that one, Mr. Tayo. So self-control, this includes controlling the needs, the feelings, and emotions. So, for example, um, playing a game like Simon Says, so where children have to listen and wait before they act. So, games that encourage, so Simon Says game, it encourages children to pause and think before they act. It helps them practice self-control. So by waiting their turn or following rules, children learn to manage their impulses and control their emotions. So like when they feel excited or frustrated. So self-control, this skill is essential for school and life because it helps them focus and cooperate with others. All right. Did you understand, everyone? All right, thank you. So, lastly, we have interpersonal skills. So, understanding of self and others, and accepting the basic needs and emotions, changing the needs and emotions of other people, and cooperation in solving problems that are that arise in mutual relationships. So as we all know, interpersonal skills, it means you are um, people smart, right? So for example, if two children both want the same toy, the teacher encourages them to take turns by saying, let's take turns so everyone gets a chance to play. So, learning to share and take turns, it helps children understand how to cooperate with others. So, it teaches them to think about other people's feelings and needs, not just their own. So, by practicing interpersonal skills, children can make friends, solve problems together and work through disagreement in a peaceful way. So these interpersonal skills are important for building a good relationship as they grow. All right. Kindly next the slide, please. Miss Melfi, kindly next the slide. All right, so in cooperative learning, we have ideal group size. So there are different group sizes. Children can work with peers or more. So as children are working with a large group, the more interaction is possible and it increases the greater challenge. So first, we have letter A, pair. So in this group, one child works with another child to create two-way interactions. So for example, um, two children work together to build a tower with blocks. And then one child picks up the blocks while the other arranges them. So they communicate with each other, saying things like, "Can you pass me the red block and let's make it taller?" So in a pair, two children have the opportunity to engage in a back and forth exchange. Right? So they learn to listen to each other and share their ideas and negotiate. So this interaction helps develop communication skills, empathy, and also teamwork. So children in pairs often feel more comfortable expressing themselves and taking turns. So which supports social and emotional development. All right. So next we have triad. So anyone, do you have any idea? Can I have is Intal, Miss Intal? Are you there? Okay. Let's have Disokatan, Miss Disokatan.
When I say triad, these are the group of friends consists of three people. We can call it also a trio. Am I correct?
All right, thank you. So, triad in this type of group, one child collaborates with two other children. So, Miss Sukatan is correct. All right. So, it fosters three-way interaction. So, for example, um, three children work together to complete a puzzle, and then one child holds the pieces, then another helps sort them by color, and the third child suggests where to place each piece. So they take turns talking and collaborating to finish the puzzle. So in a triad, three children collaborate. So which introduces complexity to the interaction. So they must practice listening to multiple voices, compromise, and solve problems together. So triad interactions are important because they teach children how to handle more diverse perspectives and work through disagreements and find solutions that work for everyone. So it also helps them develop stronger communication and also negotiation as they navigate group dynamics. All right. Give me thumbs up if you understand. All right. So last we have quad. So anyone? Do you have any idea? All right. Can I have Miss Lubidika?
Am I audible, Mika? Miss Mika?
Yes.
Okay, so quad or like resulting in four-way interaction. So it is a group of for individuals and also can be an ideal size in a various situations or scenarios in a group. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that one. So quad, in this type of group, one child works with three other children, resulting in four-way interactions. All right, so for example, four children play a pretend game where they take on different roles such as a teacher, a student, a parent, and a pet. So they work together to create a storyline, share materials, and act out different scenarios. So they collaborate by negotiating rules, sharing toys, and using imagination to um, develop the game further. So in quad, children interact with four people, so which requires advanced social skills like taking turns, so sharing space and materials, and finding ways to keep everyone involved. So this larger group interaction encourages children to work cooperatively, manage group conflicts, and contribute to a shared goal. So they learn to communicate clearly, listen actively, and collaborate with a wider group. So which builds their teamwork skills and social confidence. All right. Again, pair interactions promote direct. So simple exchanges between two children and enhancing one-on-one communication and cooperation. And when we say triad interaction, introduce more voices, requiring children to learn negotiation and how to balance different opinions and ideas. And also, in quad interactions, involves a larger group, pushing children to manage complex group dynamics, share leadership, and find consensus in play or task. So each group type helps develop specific social communication and problem solving skills in a way that builds their ability to work with others in diverse settings. All right. So kindly next the slide, please, Miss Melfi. All right. Excuse me. So next we have the benefits in using cooperative learning. So first, we have it develops leadership skills. Next, we have it increases teamwork. Next, we have it enhances communication skills, and it develops conflict management skills, and it develops decision making skills. All right, but first we have it develops leadership skills. So leadership doesn't always come naturally, right? But every child can benefit from practicing it. So, by assigning leadership roles to all children in a group settings, um, even those who are shy or less confident, um, they have the opportunity to develop skills like decision making, problem solving, motivating others. So, the teacher's role, so the teacher's role is to encourage and support these children as they practice guiding their peers. So, which helps build self-assurance and the ability to take charge in various situations, both in and outside of the classroom. All right. So next we have it increases teamwork. So anyone has an idea what is this? All right. Can I have Miss Dadul?
So, increasing teamwork. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So by doing this, working in groups, it promotes collaboration, and teaches students how to work effectively with others.
All right, thank you. So it increases teamwork. So working in groups requires children to collaborate, share responsibilities, and focus on a shared goal. So this teaches them how to coordinate their actions, communicate effectively, and respect the contribution of others. So as they contribute to a group project, children learn that teamwork isn't just about getting the job done. So it's about valuing each other's input and supporting peers, and also working towards collective success. So these are critical skills they can carry into future work environments where cooperation and collaboration are often essential. All right. Next, we have it enhances communication skills. So in communication, it is a fundamental part of working in groups, right? So children need to express their ideas clearly, listen to their peers, and contribute to a group discussion. So the teacher can model effective communication techniques like um, speaking clearly and listening attentively, and encourage children to practice these skills in a safe environment. So as they communicate with others, children learn how to ask for help and give feedback and negotiate ideas. So all of which are important social and academic skills they will continue to use as they grow. All right. Next, we have it develops conflict management skills. So anyone, you have any idea? Can I have Miss Villasor?
It develops conflict management skills, right?
Yes.
So when you say they are able or when you say cooperative learning, so they are going to collaborate. So with that, they are able to um, students learn to solve the problems or the agreements peacefully with their group mates, because as we all know that cooperative is um, something that they are able to cooperate with. And
All right. Thank you, Miss Villasor. So it develops conflict management skills. So group activities often lead to differences in opinions, desires, or ideas, which can result in conflicts. So, teaching children how to handle these situations is crucial for what their social development. So teachers can guide children in identifying the root of the conflict. So listening to different perspectives and finding peaceful solutions. So by modeling conflict resolution techniques like compromising, apologizing, or discussing issues calmly, teachers can help children develop the emotional intelligence needed to resolve disagreements without escalating them. So this skill is invaluable for their relationships both now and in the future. All right. Next, we have it develops decision making skills. All right. So, in cooperative learning, group activities involve many decisions, like choosing a task, dividing responsibilities, and agreeing on how to complete the project. So, encouraging children to participate participate in these decisions helps them um, understand the process of weighing opinions, making choices, and being accountable for their part. So teachers can guide them by asking open-ended questions like, "What do you think we should do next?" Or it could be, "How can we solve this problem together?" So by practicing decision making in a group, children learn how to think critically and consider other opinions and make choices that benefit the whole team. So this skill will help them in both academic, not just academic, but in everyday life. Right. Kindly next the slide, please. All right. Thank you. So next we have um, challenges in using cooperative learning. So first we have group dynamic dilemmas. So children who are working in a group possess different personalities, right? So hence conflict among them is possible. So mismatch personalities can cause um, unsatisfactory results in executing the activities and achieving the objectives. All right. For example, in a group activity where children are tasked with building a model of a house, and then one child might want to take charge, directing the others, while another child prepares to work quietly and independently. And so another child might become frustrated if their ideas aren't being considered. So the group might struggle to come together and collaborate effectively, which it leads to tension and an incomplete project. All right. So in any group, children will bring different personalities, temperaments, and preferences, right? So these differences can sometimes lead to conflict or difficulty working together. It's because children with more dominant personalities might intentionally take over, while those who are more introverted might not feel comfortable speaking up. So, if the group fails to communicate well or respect each other's working styles, the task can become what? Disorganized or even fail to meet the intended goals. All right. And you agree, guys, everyone? All right. So next we have an even distribution of workload. So can someone share the ideas? All right. Can I have Miss Fuentes? Is Miss Fuentes present? All right. Can I have Inok, Miss Inok?
So cooperative, so, so an even distribution of workload. So and cooperative learning. So an even distribution of workloads happens when some group members take on most of the tasks while others contribute little or not at all, which is not equal to that's all.
All right. Thank you. So another challenge of cooperative learning is uneven distribution of workload. So, unfortunately, most of the time, more advanced children take over the majority of the tasks, right? So, conversely, struggling children deliberately rely on advanced children to avoid exerting any effort for the group. For example, during a group art project, one child who is more skilled at drawing ends up doing the most of the work, while another child who is struggling with the task only colors and pre-drawn lines. So the less confident child relies on the more skilled one and avoids taking on any responsibility. And it results in an even division of effort or an even distribution of workload. So that's it. All right. So next we have classroom management. So teachers may experience classroom management, especially if many groups are working on different tasks. So challenge in monitoring is inevitable in this situation, which results in off-topic chatter. So for example, again, in a group activity, the class is split into several smaller groups. So each working on different tasks. And one group might be fully engaged in creating a poster, while another is distracted and chatting. So the teacher has to move between the groups to monitor progress. But with many different activities happening at once, it becomes challenging to keep all students on task. So some children may become off topic or noisy, disrupting the flow of the lesson. So managing a classroom with multiple groups working on different tasks can be overwhelming for a teacher. So with various activities happening simultaneously, there may be difficulties in maintaining focus and quiet. So as children become distracted or start talking about unrelated topics, teachers must constantly monitor each group to ensure that everyone stays on track. But with a large class or multiple groups, it can be difficult to keep the classroom organized and um, prevent disruptions from occurring. All right. Did you understand, everyone? Kindly give me thumbs up. All right. Kindly next the slide, please. No, Miss Melfi. All right. So next, we have suggested cooperative learning strategy. So first, we have think, pair, share. So anyone, do you have any idea what is think, pair, share? Raise your virtual hand if you want to answer. All right. Can I have Miss Dorothy to share your idea? Or you have
Pardon, am I the one being called?
yes, Miss.
I guess think, pair, share as it's a type of game, I guess, that includes finding the same similarity of a thing, then you're going to pair it with the other one, then you will share it with your group like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
All right. Thank you. So think, pair, share is a strategy encourages individual thinking and culminates in sharing ideas with the larger group. So it helps students reflect on a question, um, communicate with a peer, and then articulate their thoughts through the whole class. So, for example, in a reading lesson, the teacher asks, what was the main theme of the story? And then the students take a moment to think about the question individually. And then they pair up with a classmate to discuss their ideas before the pairs are before the pairs share their answers with the class. So first, they um, think a moment the question individually first, then pair up and then share to the whole class. So think, pair, share. Um, yeah, help students organize their thoughts, practice listening skills, and build confidence in sharing their ideas. So it creates an opportunity for all students to what contribute to the conversation, especially those who may feel shy, may shy in speaking in front of the entire class. So this method fosters critical thinking, communication, and peer-to-peer learning. All right. Give me thumbs up if you understand. All right, thank you. So next we have jigsaw technique. All right. So in this strategy, the class is divided into groups, and each student is assigned a different segment of the lesson. So after researching their individual topic, students come together in their original groups to each to teach rather their peers about what they learn. All right. So for example, in a science class on ecosystem, no, the teacher assigns each student a different ecosystem to study, like the desert, the forest, the ocean, etc. So after researching their topic, each student um, returns to their group to teach their peers about their specific ecosystem, contributing um, to the group's overall understanding of the subject. So, the jigsaw technique promotes what? Active learning and collaboration. So, it helps students become experts in a particular area while learning how to teach others. So, this strategy encourages responsibility as each student plays a crucial role in the group's success. It also reinforces knowledge retention as teaching others is one of the most what effective ways to solidify understanding. All right. Then next we have 2-minute papers. So can I have mm, okay, Miss Pagatpat, share your idea.
I guess a 2-minute papers is simply a student write for 2 minutes on a given topic or question. So then if 2 minutes end, then they share and discuss their ideas in pairs or small groups. That's all.
All right, thank you for that one. So at the end of the lesson, 2-minute papers, the students are given 2 minutes to write a brief summary or response to a prompt. So this strategy encourages reflection on what they've learned and allows the teacher to gauge their understanding. All right, for example, at the end of the math lesson, the teacher asks students to write down the most important concept they learned that that day and one question they still have. All right. So afterward, the teacher can discuss the responses with the class to address any confusion and clarify key points. All right. So 2-minute papers encourages students to consolidate their learning by summarizing key points. So it helps them focus on the most important aspects of the lesson and identify areas where they may need further clarification. So 2-minute papers This strategy also provides the teacher with immediate feedback, allowing them to address misunderstandings or adjust future lessons accordingly. Okay, did you understand, everyone? All right, so next we have question and answer pair. All right, so in this cooperative learning strategy, students pair up to create questions based on the lesson. So they then quiz each other, which reinforces their their understanding of the material. So, for example, after a history class, students pair off and create questions about key events or figures they learned about. So, when they take turns asking and answering the questions, it reinforces their knowledge of the lesson. So, the question and answer pair strategy fosters student interaction and deepens understanding by encouraging active recall. So by generating questions themselves, the students engage with the material on a higher level. So this method promotes critical thinking, reinforces retention, and provides opportunities for students to assess each other's knowledge in a collaborative setting. All right, so last one we have placemat. All right. So in small groups, students collaboratively create a large shared sheet, which is the placemat. So where they where they each contribute their ideas and reflections on a particular topic. So these visual representations helps ensure that every student's voice is heard, 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 and their ideas are recorded. So for example, um, in an art class, students are tasked with brainstorming ideas for a group project. So they use large sheet or the placemat to write and draw their ideas, with each student um, contributing to the brainstorming process. So the completed placemat serves as a visual tool to guide their collaborative work. Right. So the placemat strategy promotes inclusivity and ensures that um, all students contribute to the group ideas. So it fosters collaboration by giving each student a space on the sheet to add their thoughts. Right. So this strategy encourages creativity also, and teamwork, and the ability to synthesize diverse ideas into a cohesive plan. All right. So these suggested all these suggested strategies promote collaboration, critical thinking, and enhanced learning through peer interaction. Okay. All right. Kindly next the slide, please. Now, Miss Melfi. All right. So, in conclusion, cooperative learning is an effective teaching strategy that encourages students to work together in small groups to achieve common goals. So, this approach promotes collaboration, communication, and critical thinking, allowing students to learn from each other and develop important social skills. So, ultimately, cooperative learning enhances the educational experience by making learning more interactive and engaging. So that's all for my part. So do you have any questions, clarifications? Kindly give me heart reactions if you're still there. All right. I hope you learned something from me, and now I will pass the virtual floor to Ms. Liganalyn Harina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mika Hilid. Am I audible, everyone? Can you give me a thumbs up if I am? Thank you. So now we will dive into another instructional strategy and teaching science for young learners, which is the storytelling. Can we next the slide, please? Okay, so I know that every one of you is already familiar with this one, but still, we will still explore the kinds of stories, the benefits, and the challenges that are being faced in using storytelling. So, can someone share the idea about storytelling? Can I have Ana Villasor to share her idea about what storytelling is?
Um, for me, when I do storytelling is when you share something to your to other people, like stories or something. It is an oral literature, I guess.
Thank you. It could be. Can you next the slide, Miss Melfi? Okay, so when we say storytelling, it is defined as the act of sharing a tale or a series of events and uses words to create new worlds and experiences in a reader or listener's imagination. So, storytelling, it is the art of communicating information through telling a story. And it is not just the delivery of words and gestures, but more than that. When we say storytelling, it is a powerful tool that has been used for centuries to educate, entertain, and inspire the young children. And through telling a story, we can transport the listeners to different worlds. We can spark their imaginations and leave a lasting impact. And usually, before when now let's talk about science. So before, science seems like a boring subject and only taught by just telling the young children facts and also making them memorize some concepts. So give me thumbs up if you agree, everyone. Okay, so now we can make science more fun by just telling them a story. So these stories, it can help the young learners to understand some tricky science ideas in a simple way. And also, it offers a unique and effective approach of teaching science. So can you next the slide, please? Okay, so there are various kinds of stories that teachers can use in presenting science concepts or theories. And on the other hand, it is really necessary that teachers, or we as a future educator, have the knowledge and know the different kinds of stories. So the first kind of stories is fable. Can you next, Miss Malfi? Okay, so can I have Ella Rosell to read what is fable? Okay, I think Ella Rosell. Ah, sige,
Are you
go.
done?
Proceed. You may now proceed, Ella.
Fable, a short story where animals are commonly the main characters.
Okay, so fable, when we say fable, these are the short tales that often feature animals as characters and convey some moral lessons. So they are typically allegorical. When we say allegorical, it contains a moral or hidden meaning. It means that the characters and events in a story may represent the abstract ideas or quality. So kindly next the slide, Miss Malfi. Okay, so can anyone guess the title of the fable that is shown in the presentation? Can I have Chara Auman to guess the title, please? Okay, can I have Alma Lubidica since Chara Auman's mic is not working?
Am I audible? I Miss Lian.
Yes.
I think it is the lion and the mouse.
Exactly, that's right. So in the first picture, it is a fable about the lion and the mouse, where it teaches us about the power of humility and gratitude. So the story goes like a small mouse helps a mighty lion, where it demonstrates that even that even the smallest creature can have a significant impact towards the others. So, can you next, Miss Malfi? Okay, how about this picture? What do you think of the title? Yes, Angela Enoch.
The turtle and the rabbit.
Yes, it could be, but the title is the tortoise and the hare, but it could be also the turtle and the rabbit. So this classic fable teaches us a valuable lesson about the importance of perseverance and steady effort. So the story goes, a boastful hare that is confident in his speed challenged a slow-moving tortoise to a race. So here, the hare, certain of his victory, even took a nap midway through the race that he thinks that he had a plenty of time. And however, the tortoise, though he is slow, he kept moving steadily and eventually crossed the finish line first. So it shows that the slow and steady wins the race. So this fable reminds us that the consistent effort and the determination can often surpass the talent and the speed. Can you next the slide, Miss Malfi? The next kind of stories is the folk tale. Next, please. Who wants to read the definition of the folk tale? Can I have Alma Lobidica and please share your idea about folktale?
Okay, so folk tales, traditional stories told by the people or folk. Also, folk tales. It is a tradition. Folk tales. It's all about the tradition tales of an old people or the century people, I think.
Yes, that's right. So when we say folk tales, these are the traditional stories that are passed down orally through generations. So they often involve some mythical creatures, magic, or supernatural events. And also, folk tales often reflect the cultural values and beliefs of a particular society. Kali next, Matt.
Inya na mag-record pag
Okay, so can anyone guess what kind of folktale is shown in the presentation? Okay, so I guess no one knows what kind. Okay, so let's have Linya Unduna.
I guess the fisherman and the golden fish.
Exactly, that's right. So the tale of the old fisherman and the goldfish is a Russian folktale that warns against greed and the importance of being content or contentment. So the fisherman here initially grateful for a small fish, but in the long run, he becomes increasingly greedy and ultimately losing everything that he had. So it really reminds us of that being greed can ruin everything. So we have to be content what we have now. Can you next, Miss Malfi? How about this one? What kind of folktale? Okay, Ninya Unduna again.
The monkey and the turtle.
And can you share what is the story all about?
The story is about the monkey who choose the banana and she gives the stem and or the root to the turtle.
Okay, that's right. So, The Monkey and the Turtle is a Filipino folktale where a monkey and a turtle turtle found a banana tree in the forest. So the monkey takes the top, thinking it's the best part. And as he plants the top of the banana, after many days, it actually dies. And on the other hand, the turtle who takes the root part can't believe that it grows and bears fruit. So these tales, it teaches us about the patience and the wise choices can lead us to success. Kelly, next the slide, please. So the next one is the legend. Sorry for that. So can you next, Miss Malfi? So legend are the stories that explain how things got to be the way they were. So when we say the legends, these are the stories that is based on the historical events or real people and often enhanced with the mythical elements. So they can be used to explain the natural phenomena, celebrate the heroic deeds, or instill some cultural values. So I provided two examples of legend. Can you next, Miss Malfi? So the first one is the alamat ng Ampalaya and the next one is the alamat ng Lansones. So there are numerous perspective and variations of alamat ng Ampalaya and alamat ng Lansones. So these legends have been passed down orally through generations and different storytellers have added their own unique touches resulting in a diverse interpretation. So it is important to remember that these legends are part of a rich and oral tradition and the specific details may vary depending on the region and the storyteller. Please next the slide. So the next one is the personal stories. So personal stories, these are the stories about you or your family or famous personalities like heroes. So when we say personal stories, it is like the little windows into someone's life. So they are the tales that is based on the real experiences, based on feelings and lessons learned. So these stories can be a simple accounts of an everyday event or deep reflections on a life-changing moment. So it helps us to connect with the other people. It helps us to inspire each other, and also by sharing a personal stories, we can learn a valuable lesson, and we can also build a stronger relationship and make a positive impact on the world. Kindly next now. So the last one kind of stories is the history. Kindly next, please. So the history, this is the stories that happen to someone we do not know we do not personally know. So when you say history, these are like a time machine that takes us back to the past. So they tell us about the real events, the people, and the places. And sometimes it is written in a way that makes the reader exciting and interesting like a story. And we can also learn about the past, being proud of our history, and we can also understand the different culture through history. So for example, we can learn about the history of a space exploration. So we can read about the brave astronaut who traveled to the moon like Neil Armstrong, or we can also learn about the famous scientists like Albert Einstein who discovered amazing things about the universe. So although different researchers told us that a story can be used as a strategy in teaching science to young children, and it is indeed that a teacher should know how to tell a story or a proper way to make or to use a story. Can you next the slide, please, Ms. Malfi? So Strauss 2015 suggested these steps in telling a story based on his study. So the following are the identified steps. So the first one is finding a story. So finding a story, when choosing a story, we have to pick one that is related to the science topic that you are teaching. And it should be interesting to kids and easy for them to understand. So, for example, if you are teaching about plants, so you could choose a story about a seed that grows into a big tree. So, you will begin your story with how a seed is planted in the soil, the conditions that are needed for a seed to sprout, just like the such as water and sunlight. And you will also include how a tiny stem emerges from a seed and the role of leaves in the photosynthesis. And lastly, you can highlight in the story the growth of the tree, its root and trunk, and also its branches. So by relating the science concept to a captivating story, we can spark curiosity and imagination to the children. They can visualize the abstract concepts of how a plant grow, and also it can foster a critical thinking where these children can analyze the story and may ask a question like, why does the seed need water, or how does the tree gets its food, and also it can make the learning experience more meaningful. So the next one is learning a story. So so in telling a story, you have to read the story many times to know it well. So you have to think about the characters, what are the problems of in the story, and how this problem is solved. So this will help you to tell the story smoothly. So the third one is begin with a short tale that you love. So it means that you have to start your storytelling session with a short story that you personally enjoy, because when you are passionate about that story, your enthusiasm will naturally shine through, and also it can captivate the young audience. So for example, before you start with your discussion, you could start with a short story about a curious little water droplet. So you could tell the children a story about its journey from a cloud to falling as a rain and flowing into a river and eventually evaporating back into the sky. So this simple story can introduce to the young learners the water cycle, since it is a fundamental concept in science. So by using a story, you can make the complex process of water cycle more relatable and engaging for young learners through telling them a story. So the next one is to read the story many times. So practice reading the story out loud. So it can help you to speak clearly and smoothly. And also you can use different voices for different characters to make the story more interesting and engaging for the learners. And the next one is create a story outline. So you have to plan the story by writing down the main parts. So can you give me the main parts of making a story or writing down a story? Okay, so can I have Marel Igot to provide a example of a main part of a story?
Um,
Like
what
plot,
again?
main part of the story,
The main point?
main part of a story.
Main point
Example like the
of
plot.
huh? Muhammad Rito. Muhammad Rito.
Yes, Charauman.
Garikod niyo eh. Ano lang?
Okay, so I think Auman's mic is not working. So can I have Angela Enoch?
Main part of the story,
Yes.
I think, is a plot or beginning, middle, and end.
Yes, that's right. So another. Yes, Kevin Rosal.
setting.
That's
All right.
right. Another, Leslie Pagatpat. Okay, Ana Villasor.
Characters, point of view,
Thanks, yeah.
and
Okay, that's right. So when you writing down the main parts, it could be the plot, the character, the setting, and also the theme. So through these main parts, it will help you to remember the order of events and make sure that you don't miss anything important in the story. So can you next the slide, please? So the next is practice a lot. Okay, so before we share our story in front of the children, we have to practice on how we deliver the story. So why do you think that before we telling the story in front of the children, um what do you think is the important part? Okay, again, so what do you think? Is it important to practice a lot when you share a story to the children? Okay, can I have Melfi Disokatan?
Again, Leonaline.
Why do you think it is important to practice a lot when you share or deliver the story in front of the children?
Uh, as a storyteller, it is really necessary for us to practice our ready-made story to the children. It is because to avoid a error or conflict and to be prepared for the presentation.
Okay, so that's right. So practicing telling the story is really necessary because when we practice the story, or we can ask a feedback on how we can improve or what part that is needed an adjustment. So in instance, you could practice telling a story of the water cycle to your sibling or to a friend, and you will ask them if they understood the story, if they found the story interesting, if there were any parts that were confusing. So their feedback can help you identify the areas, sorry for that, the areas where you can improve your storytelling, such as the pacing, the clarity, and also the engagement. So the next one is share the story to another person or colleague. So same as to the practice a lot. So sharing your story with someone else can help you find ways to make it even better. So you will know the parts where you needed some adjustment, and they might suggest the new ideas or point out things that you could change. And the last one is connect the story to your lesson. So why is it important to connect your story to your lesson? So can anyone share why is it important to connect a story to your lesson? Okay, can I have Josa Dorotayo?
It is very important for us whenever we tell a story that our story is somehow related to our lesson, because so that children won't be confused on where the story are related or what's the purpose of us telling that story, so that there will be clarification.
Okay, exactly. Thank you, Miss Dorotayo. So it is really important that when you tell a story to the children, it is connected to your lesson, because you can't just tell a story in front of your student that is not related to your discussion or your topic, because it might confuse your students. So you have to make sure that the story that you are telling is related to your topic, and after telling the story, you might explain how it relates to the topic or the science topic. You can also ask the question to the kids if they understand the story that you are telling. Or you can do a simple activity to reinforce the learning, like a simple experiment or a simple performance to the students. So teachers can use stories in the classroom in many different ways. It can also lead off the lesson or make as an eye opener, or a story that can be used to end or close a lesson that will surely inspire the children to take a lesson to their heart. So kindly next the slide, please. So here are the following benefits that the teachers can get in using storytelling and teaching science for young children. So can anyone read the first bullet and share their ideas?
Oh, Malit og malit og gift
Okay,
wrapper.
can I have Miss Nonato?
Hmm. Ate gutom.
Miss Nonato, you are not turning your mic.
Uh, pardon, pardon, Miss Harina. So, in,
Can
in
you
storytelling, it can capture children's attention. Yes, it's definitely true because when storytelling can enhance the children's imagination using their critical thinking, and also it promotes it enhances their creativity.
Okay, that's right. So storytelling can capture the children's attention. So it's through telling a story, it can have the innate ability to capture the children's imagination and can focus their attention. So a well-told story can transport the children to a different worlds, and also it makes the children learn fun and exciting through telling a story. So the next one is it can give children a mental organizer. So can I have Leslie Pagata to share her idea about the second bullet?
I guess wait, it can give children a mental organizer. So I guess this helps children organize and remember information more effectively. That's all.
Yeah, so through stories, it can help the children organize their thoughts and their ideas. So by following the narrative, the children can better understand those complex concepts and the relationships. So the next one, it can stimulate the imagination. So through stories, it can encourage the children to think creatively and also imagine different scenarios. And also, it can spark the curiosity and foster a love of learning. So the next one, can you read Jan Bea Sukib? Okay, I think Jan Bea Sukib is not around. Can I have Chara Auman? Okay, Jeza Dadul.
So the third bullet is it can stimulate the imagination. So like for example, a teacher shares a fantasy story about like magical kingdom. So as children listen, so they imagine the landscape, the creatures, the adventures, so fostering their creativity and ability to think outside the box.
Yes, that's right. So telling a story, it can stimulate the imagination again, and it can spark curiosity to the children. So how about the fourth bullet? Can I have Kevin Rosal?
Yes.
Kindly read the fourth bullet and share your ideas.
Fourth. So it is an effective way to teach a lesson. Am I right?
Yes. And
So
what is your idea all about?
so the benefits of telling the story or storytelling is can teach the children a lesson. Say for example, it has the seven a story that has a positive lesson that then the child can also acquire that kind of lesson or the say for example the story has giving some people giving people giving people advice or a lesson a story has a lesson that give people um, who are needed or giving the needed people so the child can also acquire that kind of lesson that they need to give people who are in need so that kind of lesson can um, um, yes that kind of lesson can give teach children a lesson that kind of story can give a child a lesson.
Okay, thank you, Kevin Rizal. I got your point. So it is an effective way to teach a lesson. So we can say that stories are really like a magic. So they can make the learning fun and easy for the children. So when we listen to a story, it's like we are watching a movie in our minds, and also it helps us to understand the things better and also remember them longer. And and through stories, it can teach us about kindness, honesty, and many other good values. So the next one, it is a gentle and effective to pass on lessons and values. So stories can teach again important life lessons such as kindness, honesty, perseverance in a gentle and also in an engaging way. And the next, the slide, please. So here are the challenges in using storytelling. So the first one is selecting appropriate stories to be used. So why do you think it is needed to select an appropriate stories to be used in children? Yes, Mariel Himandron.
So, in storytelling, I think it is important to select an appropriate stories to be used, especially knowing your listener. I think it should align to their interests and they can relate.
Okay, thank you. That's right. So choosing the story for young children is a very crucial. So it should be age appropriate, it should be engaging and accurate. So the story should align with a specific science concept that is being taught. So for example, um A story about a curious monkey might be suitable for a lesson on animal behavior, but not for a lesson on the solar system. So the next one is choosing the structure of the story. So can I have Alma Lubidika?
Pardon, Miss Lian? Me?
Yes, the second challenge in using a storytelling. Second bullet.
Choosing the structure of the story.
Okay, can you share your idea about choosing the structure of the story as it challenges in using storytelling?
Challenges in using storytelling about choosing the structure of the story. I think we need to we need to choose the right structure of the story in order for us to direct use this or to get the right structure for you in order for you to deliver your story correctly. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. That's right. So choosing the structure of the story. So the structure of the story can significantly impact its effectiveness. So what does a well-structured story should have? So a well-structured story should have a clear beginning, a middle, and end. So it also be easy to follow and understand for the young children because a poorly structured story can make confuse the children and can also hinder their learning. So the last one is careful analysis of the content of the stories, which should be based on the facts of science. Okay, sorry for that. So it is important to ensure that the content of your story is accurate and scientifically sound. So the story should not contain any misconception or inaccuracy. So for example, let's say a story about plants growing from dirt alone. So give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you agree that plants grow from a dirt alone. Okay, so that's right. So this might be a common misconception. So it is really important to accurately explain that plants also need some sunlight, plants also need some water and nutrients from the soil to grow. So a story that is correctly convey this information would be more beneficial for the children's understanding of a plant growth. So can you next the slide please? Okay, so here are the suggested stories that teachers can use in teaching science for young children. The Alamat ang Ampalaya, Araw sa Palengke ang Kamatis ni Peles, Isang Uhaw na Maya, Kain, Kumain, Kinain, Mr. Beatles Mini Rooms, Pollywog's Wiggle. And also, teachers can also use a story about a curious little planet that wants to explore the universe and teaching about the solar system. And also a story about a raindrop that travels through the water cycle and teaching about the water cycle, and a story about a young animal that learns about its habitat and how to survive and teaching about the animals. So can you next the slide please? So, in conclusion, storytelling is a powerful tool for teaching science to young children. It captures the attention and also stimulates imagination and makes complex concepts easier to understand. And by choosing the right stories, structuring them effectively, and ensuring the accuracy, teachers can create engaging and effective learning experiences. So that's all for our discussion for today. So I hope you gain something from us. And at this moment, we will be having our quiz. So kindly get one half lengthwise of a yellow paper. Miss Melfi, kindly stop the presentation. Thank you. Okay, I guess everyone is ready. So our quiz for today has three parts. So the test one will be multiple choice, test two true or false, and test three for enumerations. And also while answering, kindly raise your virtual hand. And if you are done, you may remove your virtual hand. So you may now start answering. Okay, so I think everyone is already done. Okay, can you take a picture of your paper and send it to me and to Mika Healy? Thank you, everyone. Imo nag-stop, ye? Stop na.